Hi everybody, I got a lot of requests to do a how to do a handstand video. So I finally caved and I'm going to teach you how to do some cool stuff. I was a gymnast first for 12 years, and one of the things that they teach you in that is complete mastery of each skill before you move on to the next. So when I started coaching gymnastics, which was my first job, I had a really hard time explaining to recreational gymnastics classes how to do a handstand when each of their little skills before that wasn't absolutely perfect. And I struggled so much to be able to break it down and be okay with maybe it's not the best looking handstand, but they can do it. They can get upside down, and that's the goal. So having to learn how to do that has really made me understand how to break down a handstand a little bit better. And most of us, well, all of us are probably not competing in gymnastics if you're watching this, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be amazing and beautiful and perfect lines. We just want to get upside down and we want to do cool party tricks, because who doesn't think doing a handstand and touching your shoulders and spinning around isn't cool? I think it's pretty cool. So let's get started. So first and foremost, you're gonna want to warm up at least a decent amount, especially if you're not really used to putting a lot of pressure and weight on your hands and shoulders. The goal is to eventually be as comfortable upside down as you are walking. And that sounds crazy, but you really can practice enough to where you are that comfortable upside down. I know when I'm in a handstand, granted I'm not the best handstander to ever live, but I'm very comfortable upside down. I don't have to think about anything anymore. So basically what you want to do, make sure your hands are wide. We don't want to do a handstand with closed fingers, and I'll explain that eventually, but hands wide and just regular forward and backward rocking. Get those wrists moving, get everything moving a little bit more than they normally would. You can go side to side, you can go backwards, you can go upside down, just a very standard wrist warm up so they're not so stiff. After you warm up your wrists, you can do a bit of a shoulder warm up. You can do butcher's block, you can do door stretches, you can pretty much do any shoulder stretching warm up that you know, or you could easily Google it. You can also warm up with pretty much any of the drills that we're about to go through. Especially if you're a beginner, it's really good to kind of practice those even as you get a little bit more advanced and progress through regular handstands. Just as a good reminder of what things should feel like, how things should be moving, and it never hurts to do a little bit of basics. So first thing that's really important is figuring out which leg you want to kick up with. I know mine, obviously, and it is my left one, which is the same as the foot that I put in front for my jerk. If you don't do jerks, you won't know that, but you can kind of figure out which one feels the best. And then once you pick which one you like the best, try and stick with that one. You don't have to be able to do them with each leg. You want to just pick one, stick to that, and really drill that one. So one of the first tests that I like is basically the bend and reach test. So stand on whichever leg and see if you can just bend and touch the floor with your fingertips. There's a few things that might come up with that. You might feel like you can't really balance that well. A lot of people will stand on this leg and they'll really cave this way. So if that's your issue, your first focus should be working on balance on that one leg. And you can do a lot of things in gymnastics. We call them either T-shaped holds or teeter-totters. So you can practice just going to look like the letter T and up, and really try and make sure your weight is on the outside edges of your foot rather than the inside, because if it's on the inside, your leg is going to tend to want to collapse a little bit. So you can practice T-shapes. They don't have to be beautiful. If the way you're in gymnastics would be arms glued to your ears, toes pointed, but for our sake, it doesn't really matter. Once you get that, you can see if you can touch. So if you can't touch because you feel too much tension in your hamstrings or they're not flexible enough, one, stretching becomes your most important thing. And then you can kind of work down to the floor a couple ways. One of the things that you can do is you could try and reach for an object. So practice, that'll be your first progression. So try and reach, tap, make sure you're stable, make sure this leg doesn't have to be locked. Ideally, it'll be at least straight, but if you need to start off, you could bend it a little bit to just get comfortable with this. Once that's easy, try something else. A shoot, try and bend, touch, and then eventually work your way down to touching the floor. Once you have that down, you really want to try and get not just your fingertips on the floor, but the whole flat of your hand as well. So you want to reach down, try and press your whole hand into the floor, and stand back up, because one of the big mistakes is people will try to jump to their hands, and so they're coming from this like they can't quite reach and they're jumping, and that basically sets you up to fall more or less. You want to be able to really rock and press into that handstand so every part of the movement is really controlled. Another thing that you can try if you really struggle with the balance part is you can try and do your T-shape and reach for certain things. So if I am struggling and I get to about here and I start falling over, I can practice reaching this way. So it's not so much reaching down for something, but it's just reaching for some point and do it back and forth. And you kind of develop more balance. You could reach to the side, you could reach over here, you could go any direction and just try and develop that balance on a single leg a little bit more. Once you've kind of figured out where you are balance and flexibility wise, then you can really go to the next progression or the next drills. And I really like doing the balance and hamstring test first because it kind of decides where you are in that skill progression. So if you're really comfortable upside down but you can't reach and really press into the floor very well, that's going to make it really hard to get up into a good handstand. So if you're missing that first part and that kick up and that ability to really be comfortable and flexible enough to get into that position, it's really going to make getting up into a handstand a lot harder. Okay, so next is getting comfortable with being upside down in general, which is a weird thing because most people don't do anything that puts them upside down. So getting used to having your head flipped upside down and all of your body weight on your hands, elbows, shoulders is a really weird thing when you first start trying. So some of the drills that you can do is you can do handstands with your feet on a box. So it's like a half a handstand. You have half your body weight over your head. So you put your feet up here and just hold. And when you do that, make sure that your hands are right about shoulder width. We don't need to be super precise and make sure they're directly under, but you want them around shoulder width. With your hands, you want your fingers spread open so that when we get to a freestanding handstand eventually, those are kind of your balance checks. So as you fall one way or the other, you can grip the floor and squeeze and push, and they're like your toes. So shoulder width, fingers wide, and you don't want to be completely head tucked in like this, because this is not a realistic position. If we are in gymnastics, we would want a very straight, perfect line, but you want to be able to see between your hands for the most part. So you don't want your head like this, but you also don't want your chin completely tucked. You're going to find kind of that happy medium and try and look at a spot between your hands on the floor. When you do these, make sure that your hips are directly over your head if possible. So you want to really simulate being completely upside down with just not as much load and pressure on your hands and shoulders. So you want to try and get those hips all the way above your head. So if you need to walk your hands a little bit, either direction, you totally can. Or if you're not comfortable with that, you can try knees down first and hold this way. That way is a little bit harder to get completely upside down, but it's even less pressure on all of this. So that would be like the very, very basic progression of the box handstands. When you do the box handstands, one of the questions that I got a lot of was, how do you breathe when you're upside down? And granted, it's a little bit harder than when you're standing up. There isn't really a huge focus on breath or holding your breath. You just want to make sure that you're breathing. Try and make it as normal as you can. It's going to feel weird at first, but that's why the box handstands are a good first step, because you can really settle in there and figure out the best way for you to breathe and the best way to hold your body and time those breaths and everything that you need to do before you have all of your body weight upside down. All right, next on our list is the kick up itself. We're in my garage, so I know it's a little bit hard to see, but I'll do my best. So the first thing we want to do is, now that we have figured out if we can touch the floor, we can figure out which leg we want to use. We have figured out what it feels like to have pressure on those shoulders and hands and be in that upside down position. Now it's kind of time to mush them together a little bit. So you're going to try first step, baby hop. So you want to do all the things that you've already worked through. Reach down, press flat hands into the floor, and then just rock your weight onto your hands and pick up your standing foot. So up, down. If that's super easy, then you can try the next one, which is basically just aiming your back foot, your kicking leg, up to vertical. So you don't want to overkick, and we're not trying to kick up to a full handstand yet. We just want to try and figure out where in our balance is vertical, because that is the next kind of challenge that you're going to face, is finding exactly where vertical is with all of your body weight. So you want to kick up, reach for the top, and down. So you want to try and find vertical. You don't want to bring up that other leg yet. We're not ready for that yet. So top leg up, find that vertical position, and then back down. And then from that, you can use a wall or a door or any kind of like wall-like surface to be your guide of where that vertical is. So once you've figured that out, you can test it a few times against the wall. So up, find the wall, and back down. And once you've figured out where that wall is, this is kind of the drill to help those who kick up and immediately keep going. So you want to spend a lot of time finding that top position. And for this one, you find the top, then bring the other foot to meet it. I know you can't see my feet in the video, but you don't want to rely on the wall too much. It's really just your guide. You don't want to get used to over kicking and like drilling through the wall. You want to gently kick up, find that top spot, then bring the other foot up. Just do it one more time. Up, wall, other foot. And then you can hold if you want. And when you do these, you want to make sure that you're not too far from the wall. I know it's hard to see because this is as far away as I can get my camera, but you don't want your hands like a foot away from the wall so that when you kick up, you're leaning against it. You want to be pretty close. Obviously, we all have butts and the things in the way, so you don't want to have your fingertips up against it, but pretty close. Up, up. So I'd say I'm about 3 inches from the wall. So you'll have to find where your sweet spot is, but definitely don't be like 2 feet away from the wall. Okay, so once you start holding upside down, let's talk body lines a little bit. So like I said for the boxes, you don't want your head sticking out. You don't want it super tucked in, but you generally want your body to be in a straight line. That's the easiest position to control, easiest position to hold. So when you kick up against the wall, try and check yourself. So kick up, is your head out, is your head in? No, look straight for your hands. The general rule, I know I'm talking upside down, but is ears next to your shoulders. So you don't have to shrug up, but just have them inside your shoulders. And then from there, is your back sagging? Is your butt tucked in too much? You want to push and make everything reach up as tall as you can. So once you're at that point, you are comfortable-ish with being upside down. You've built some sort of strength and stability in all the areas that you need it for a handstand. So now you have to work on building that balance and that strength, hopefully to a point where you can not need a wall. So ways to do that, there's a few ways. So one, you can do, they're called wall walks, I think, in CrossFit. We never really have a name for them in gymnastics, but hands on the floor, feet on the wall, and walk all the way up to nose and toes on the wall, and then down. So that really builds, one, just some shoulder strength, among other things, and it gives you a bit more of awareness of where that vertical position is, and that's really the hardest thing to grasp when you do these. Another thing that you can do is building on that wall walk. So once you walk up, walk, 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 here, you can try and pull your toes off the wall to balance, and then come back. Balance, and then come back. And walk down. I'll do that again so you can just see my feet, because I know you probably couldn't see them. So toe pulls where you can see my feet addition. Walk up. So this is handstand. Pull your toes off the wall, and back. Off, and back. And you don't want to stick your butt out and pull them off that way. You really want to keep that nice hollow position and just push off the wall and come back to it. If you find toe pulls to be a little bit too hard, you can do it with 1 foot at a time. So you can wall walk up and just pick up one foot and keep one planted on the wall, and then down, and then switch. And you can do that either the kick-up way or the wall walk way. So you can do your toe pulls facing either direction. I find it's a little bit easier to do on belly to the wall, but if you want to do them this way, where you kick up first and pull them off one at a time this way, you can do it like this and find vertical, or you can try and do both at a time and back. It's just a little bit harder not to overkick when you're kicking out back to the wall. Okay, so you have made it all the way to freestanding handstands. No wall, no box. You're ready to just kick up and go for it. First thing is you have to know how to fall. So step one, definitely move everything. Like this rack, if I were learning, would not be here. So move that. And make sure there's nothing around you that you could kick into, or like if you're doing it inside, don't do it right next to a table, because if you fall, you're gonna smash your ankle and it's gonna hurt like a bitch. So basically, when you kick up, the most common falling is you're gonna wanna fall backwards. You're gonna overkick and fall over, and a lot of us aren't gonna be graceful and fall into a forward roll or a bridge or something nice like that. So when that happens, you basically wanna pick up a hand and just turn it. So instead of falling over backwards, you're turning your body so that momentum takes you down this way. So say, I kick up, I kick too hard, I'm falling, turn, down. Easy, nothing broken, I'm not broken, everything is safe. You'll probably feel which hands you're gonna wanna pick up and turn, but it's nothing you can really plan for, because every fall is gonna be a little bit different, but that's also where the wide fingers come in. So if you kick up and you're falling, if you're a little bit more experienced, sometimes you can save that just by squeezing the floor. So you kick up a little bit too far, squeeze the floor, and you can pull it back. So you can really use your fingers as like your little balance tools. But most importantly is save yourself first. So if you need to bail, if you need to fall, do it the right way. Turn, fall, if you need to tuck and roll, whatever you need to do to make sure that you are safe first and foremost. Okay, now you can fall. So now you can do handstands anywhere, anytime, any place, whatever you want to do. So what I like to do is pick a spot on the floor, right between my hands, just like we talked about for the box version, and really focus on that spot. So when you kick up, you don't want to be looking around, moving your head at all. You want everything to be stable and not moving. So if you need to draw a dot or an X on the floor, you can do that as well. I know in gymnastics, we used to have to do like 2-minute holds on beam or something crazy like that. And a lot of us would draw an X and we'd have something to just stare at the whole time. So your first try, kick up, stare at the floor, try and give it a couple seconds, and then down. It may go great, it may go terrible, but if you kick up and you can hold it for a second or two, you're really fine to just practice as much as you want now. So doing the drills is fantastic and it's only going to make you better, but practicing freestanding once you get to that point is really what's going to improve your freestanding handstand. One of the most important things is make sure you're doing it on an even floor too. I've done them in like a driveway and you kick up and you just feel like you're falling down a mountain the whole time. And it might feel like that sometimes just because your positions aren't great, but it's also nice to do it flat, even, level floor. So at least it's just on you and it's not on the floor if you're falling over. So once you get good at these, again, progress them slowly and set small, reasonable goals. So say you can kick up and you can hold it for 5 seconds pretty much every time. That's fantastic. Do 5 seconds and then do 4 or 5 sets of that, and make sure you're resting between each set so your shoulders and wrists and everything can have enough time to recover so they're more or less fresh going into your next one. If that goes well, maybe next week make your goal 7 seconds and do X amount of sets at 7 and keep building like that. You don't want to go, again, like I said before, 5 seconds to I'm going to do 30 seconds. Like, that might be possible and that might happen, but to really build that foundation, you want to work in a reasonable range and do a lot of that. Party tricks are next. So if you can do the box, if you can do the wall, if you can do freestanding, you can do tricks. One of the most basic ones is handstand walks, which may happen as you learn your regular handstands, just because it's kind of part of finding your center of gravity and your balance. But obviously, if you're trying to hold, you don't want to be walking around a lot. So there's a couple things you can do. You can go all the way back to trusty box and do your feet up, and from there you just want to work on shifting your weight from hand to hand. So you don't want to be upside down and be pushing from side to side like this. It's very minimal, but it's enough of a shift to be able to pick up that one hand easily. So up, and you're just going to shift very minimally. If that's easy, you can try the taps. And from there, you can do the exact same thing on the wall. You can do it belly to the wall, you can do it back to the wall, and then you can take it to the floor. So the most important part with that is, again, getting comfortable, shifting your weight, and being able to pick up that hand without collapsing back on it. So a lot of people, when they first learn, they'll pick up, and they'll go to pick up their hand to move, and fall right back down on that side. So you want to be strong enough and comfortable enough to be able to pick up that hand and basically do a half a second one-arm handstand, so you can really have the control to walk or tap or leg taps or any kind of other weird upside down things that you want to do. If you are really good at handstands and you want to learn how to turn around, the most basic way that they teach you in gymnastics is you have your hands and it's two movements. It's a turn, a flip, and a turn. So a lot of people, they'll be in their handstand and they'll try and walk like this. So it's here, you can pick whichever direction. I like turning to the left. A flip and a turn. Two movements to get 180 degrees around. Makes it really simple and a lot less moving parts. So I'll try and not hit anything and do it. Kick up, and turn. So obviously be a little bit of fire on an even surface, but you can do that as many times as you want. So once you get comfortable with the flip and turn, then you can keep adding flip and turns, and you can just spin in a circle all day long. I would suggest when you're learning it at first, stick with one turn. So flip, turn, and then hold. So you're not rushing it, because you can spin in a circle as you're falling, but that's not really effective. So kick up, flip, turn, and hold. Flip, turn, hold. Like that. And then as you get better at them, you can connect it and make it one continuous pirouette spinning handstand tornado. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful. I am sweating and tired. If you have any more questions about handstands and things, leave me a comment and I will try to answer. Good luck, stay calm, progress slowly, and be patient, be consistent. You're gonna do a handstand. So I think this goes to show that if you bother me enough and ask me enough times, I will make a video about just about anything. So, future reference, if you really need to see me make a video about something, just ask me a million times and eventually I'll cave. And then you get handstand videos. I'm so sweaty. Oh God. How'd I get so sweaty? It's that saying, if you can teach a third grader, you really know what you're talking about, or how does that go? If you can do it. If I can teach a toddler how to do a handstand, I feel like anybody can do a handstand.